And so it came down to Graham and I. We went back to his house. We probably got back there about 8:30 at night. And Graham and I prayed the whole night through. I was 21. Graham was a few years older. We would pray for 30, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, pause for 5, 10 minutes, pray again. We opened the Bible. We read from the book of James where God said, is any among you sick? Let him call the elders. And the prayer of faith shall restore the one that is sick. And we read that out as we prayed, and we called upon God. And we prayed through to midnight. And then we prayed from 1 to 2. And we prayed again through to 3 or 4. And I'm telling you that the two of us prayed the night through. Two young men who believed that God could do something. I wasn't the pastor. I wasn't on the church staff. I wasn't a ministry leader. I wasn't even particularly liked by the pastor. But I was just there. And we prayed, and we prayed, and we prayed. And I guess around about 6 o'clock or thereabouts, I'm telling you, I was feeling nauseous and unwell from not sleeping. And if you've been awake all night, some of you know that feeling. And we got to, and I could see the light was starting to break through the curtains. And we had prayed all night. And Graham said to me, well, Wayne, it's time to go. And I said, okay. We got in Graham Frith's Datsun and drove to the other side of Brisbane, got to the hospital there at Green Slopes, parked the car, and it was probably 6:30, 6:45, something like that. And Graham and I made our way up to the ward where we had heard that she was. And we walked in. Nobody stopped us. We walked down, and we got to her room. She was in a private room. We went in the room, opened the door, very early hours of the morning, and there she was, laying in the bed, looking every bit as sick as the pastor had said she was. In fact, she did not acknowledge us being there. And she was just laying there, and I wasn't even sure if she was still alive. And I looked, and Graham looked, and he got around on one side of the bed, and I got around on the other side of the bed, and Graham put his hand on one of her arms, and I put my hand on one of her arms, and we just prayed to God. And we said, God, we've prayed to you through the night, and you know that I believe what you said in the Bible. And you know that I don't doubt what you can do. And I pray, Lord, would you have mercy now and raise this lady up and make her well again. And I prayed and I asked in Jesus' name, and Graham prayed. And as I opened my eyes from praying, we looked at Jeanette Lehman, and honestly, there didn't look to be a single change. She just was laying there. And I got to tell you, I looked at her, and I looked at Graham, and Graham looked at me, and we stood there for a minute, and Graham said, I think it's time to go, Wayne. And I said, okay. And Graham and I got, and we walked out the doors. There was no conversation. We were feeling weary, tired, and many things were going through our mind. We got down to the car, and Graham drove me back to my house, stopped out the front, and said, see you. I said, see you. I went up into my house, and I was exhausted. I went and I fell asleep. Probably maybe an hour and a half or maybe 2 after the phone rang. This was the days when we didn't have mobile phones. There was a phone on the wall. And the phone rang, and I remember waking up and walking out, and I picked up the phone, said, hello, and it was the pastor. And he said, Wayne? I said, oh, yes, Pastor. He said, did you and Graham go up to the hospital this morning? And I said, yes, Pastor. He said, where are you, Pastor? He said, I'm at the hospital now. And I said, oh, I thought she died. I said, is everything all right? He said, what did you do when you came up here? I said, we prayed. I said, what, Pastor, what's happening? Is she okay? He said, she's beside the bed riding an exercise bike. I said, she's riding an exercise bike? He said, yes. All the nurses are standing around. Everybody's looking at her. I said, oh, thank you, Pastor. The next Sunday, Jeanette Lehman was in the church. She was in the service, and Jeanette asked the pastor if she could stand up and testify. And Jeanette got up and stood up in the church, and she said, she began to cry. She said, these boys, and she pointed. She said, they came, and she said, they prayed for me. And she said, I felt like my strength came back. And she gave a testimony how that God had restored her. And Jeanette Lehman was in church for a long, long time after.